Hello and welcome everybody to another episode I'm Anna Gatman from expansiveliving.world.
And I'm Diana Badger, author of Earth Sky Journal and an astrology counselor with Elemental Counseling.
Beautiful. So I want to give a bit of a context to how we get how we got to the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is trust. So we did two episodes before, and the first one was really about shifting our lens. And when we shift our lens, if we see life in our world from astrology or from an expansive living perspective, suddenly we see the same events from a different perspective and it offers us new possibilities. So that was like the first episode that we focus on that. And then we kind of talked about leaps of faith. And you talked about the time that we're in, and you can expand on it more, but the time that we're in of that we're each called to take a leap of faith. And so as we were preparing for this third episode, what came up for us was just like, okay, we've decided to take a leap of faith. We want to step into a larger version of ourselves. How do we trust? How do we trust the unknown? How do we trust to take the first step? How do we know what's the first step? And so that's what we're going to explore a bit today from an expansive living perspective and from astrological perspective and what's timely today in the stars and the planets. So let's start with, we had a conversation before, which we want to bring in here, because we talked about faith and trust. Are they the same? Are they interchangeable? And we kind of had different opinions and we also shifted a bit. So why don't you start? Where does it
Sure.
take
Well,
you?
the concept of faith or trust makes me think of the planet Neptune and the concept of taking a leap of faith into something new, a new beginning, registers as the Neptune currently in the sign Aries, because Aries is about turning over a new leaf, creating a birth of some sort in our life, whether that's a project that we're doing, a new community, a new way of listening to ourselves inwardly, a new type of inner practice. And right now in the sky, some of the big news that I probably mentioned last time that I write about is Neptune is in Aries as well as Saturn in Aries, and they're in and out of close conjunction this year and into next year, which is a major marker of change in our culture because Saturn is about how we ground things in a practical material plane way. And Neptune is our system of faith.
Mm.
And so I wrote one of my blogs that I wrote was called Grounding Grace, which is a way of thinking of Saturn is bringing down into the nuts and bolts the vision that needs to be manifested with faith. And so I think of faith, I tend to think of faith and trust as being very important ingredients in this time as we're heading into the new, and that they're even more important than the strategizing mind of Saturn, which Saturn is about taking responsibility and considering all the details and using systems of operation on the material plane, whereas the principle of Neptunian faith can be more considered a religious concept, but it's really right now something we want to be bringing into our ordinary life. Like, where do we find trust and faith? And um, I'm curious to hear, Anna, how you distinguish between trust and faith, because when we first talked about it, I tended to think they're part and parcel of the same impulse. So
Yeah.
why don't you share a bit?
Yeah. So, yeah, I know they're used interchangeably, but I have decided to just use them in different ways because they resonate differently for me. Faith to me means moving forward, a willingness to move forward into the unknown. There's a quote, and I wouldn't know by heart who it's from faith starts as an experiment and ends up as an experience. So it's a leap into the unknown. That's what faith is for me. So the little I know about astrology, right? It's the Eris, it's the expansiveness, it's the Sag in me, willing to just take a leap of faith. There's the expression also, like leap of faith. Trust has become with life, with aging. I feel trust is more earthly. It's like trust is about listening to my nervous system. What do I feel comfortable doing? What would be an appropriate first step? What am I able to contain and what feels like it's too much for me? And as you know, in my chart, I have a lot of this fiery, let's do it, let's just do it and let's do big. And I've learned with time that trust is really about okay, so now I have the vision. The vision is the faith, and the trust is how do I do it step by step in a way that's manageable for me, that I can handle it, that I don't lose it, I'm not too scared. So that's kind of how I feel. But if I can just share before we go deeper into it. So I have these mystical moment messages, which is a card deck that I developed over a year, writing messages from 52 qualities. One of the foundations of the expansive living is that we live in a universe which is alive. So everything is conscious and aware and communicating with us. And so qualities are communicating with us. And so I have messages from 52 qualities. And this one is from, so I'll just show the card. This one is from the card of trust. So this is a message from trust. Trust in me when I say that you are held with the utmost care by invisible threads that make up the fabric of life. The more you trust this truth, the more you will trust life. The more you trust life, the more you can open up and trust yourself. And the more you can trust yourself, the more you allow life to express itself fully through your unique essence and distinctive brilliance.
Mm.
And I think that what it speaks to is that really trust and faith are mixed together here, right? In the message, trust in life, trust that you're held by invisible threads, then trust yourself, then go first step, second step. And so it's a dance between faith and trust. I think that that's the more expansive perspective rather than they're the same. So that's kind of.
Right. And that's an interesting distinction between trusting in life versus trusting in some religious picture or program, like literally just life itself, which is the embodiment of spiritual energy from my perspective and yours as well. We don't need to have a religious system or a theology or a framework, although many of us do. But more and more in this time, I think the whole structure of religion is falling away, and the connecting into the earth as actually being deeply co-creative with us and understanding that there's literally spiritual magic alive in the earth, as you've experienced in your work up at Findhorn decades ago, the existence of elemental beings, fairies, little people. But that's like at one level, one conceptual level. On the larger level of life itself, as it happens to us every day, every person that comes into our sphere, every conversation we have is embedded with messages and signs and symbols and cues, and either doors opening or doors closing, or saying or not opening. They don't have to be closing, but like we could be trying to do something and it's just not working. So like trusting in life is, we can come up with our idea of what we want to bring forth, but as we start to try to bring it forth, then we listen and trust that life will either help us flow forward with it or redirect us somewhere else. And then it's interesting. I love how in the card you say, well, if you trust in life, then that brings one to trusting oneself. I wonder if you could say more about.
Well, the image that came to me as I was writing this was like, if I trust that I'm held by invisible threads, then I'm taken care of. And if I'm taken care of, then I can trust me.
Mhm,
Because if I don't believe that I'm part of a web, then I'm all alone here and I need to figure this out. And
mhm.
I should trust no one because in a world where we're separated, I better be at on top, otherwise I'm going to be on the bottom.
Right.
And so there's a thing of being like this. It's like when you're in water and you're just kind of in warm water and you can just kind of let go. You trust you're being held, and if you can let go. So there's a lot of allowing that
Mhm.
is needed for trust. Because it's one thing, as you said, to have a direction. This is what I'm going to do, and then see where doors open and doors close. But allowing is important because if we're trying to control how it's going to happen, we might not read the messages of open and closed doors in the right way. And I'm wondering, where does allowing come in for you in the constellations, in working with the planets that are now active? How do we bring allowing in versus trying to just do it this way or that way?
Interesting. Allowing. I was sort of segueing into thinking about fear. Somehow fear popped into my head, and we could
Mm,
say that when we're not allowing what life is coming in, bringing or not bringing, we're popping into a type of constriction framework, which I associate with fear and the planet Saturn, the shadow side of Saturn. The
mm,
positive side is it helps us achieve goals. It's a principle that, gives us a drive to pursue a goal. But on the flip side of any goal is a fear of lack of success, fear of failure. And so I think on some level, when we don't allow in what's what's arriving or what's in our consciousness, and we don't want to act on it or move towards
yeah,
it, we're being um, falling into the fear mentality, which right now with the Saturn Neptune moving together today, actually Saturn is opposing the planet Mars, and Mars is taking action. That's the planet that rules Aries, so this is particularly relevant. And so Saturn opposite Mars could mean putting on the brakes while trying to move forward.
yeah,
So this thing of like, well, I don't know if I want to allow you to do that because it's not safe, or it's likely to fail, or it's too different and new and unpredictable, or whatever the fear principle might be. But that's where we have to return to the medicine of Neptune, which Neptune right now in its conversation with Saturn is the stronger force. It's the outer transpersonal planet in this duo, and it kind of can override the
mm,
Saturnian fears. And so it's almost like we have to take that mental tincture of trust,
mm,
drop it in when
yeah,
hesitance comes or doubt comes, and to instead go into a place of inquiry, like, do I really know that this couldn't work, or that this isn't me, or whatever it is that's pushing a boundary,
yeah,
to be allowing. One of the processes I feel is important is inquiring into what's underneath that. What's the thought
yeah,
process that is
yeah,
generating a fear or a
yeah.
hesitation?
So what I love, in a sense, I'm hearing very practical things. We're talking about big ideas and movements, but there's this practical thing of just, for me, just imagining that I'm being held by these threads of life, of a web. How does it feel? What does my nervous system do? And then to take a step from that place. That would be like an expansive perspective, just kind of bringing yourself into and just feeling what happens. For some people, it might be really scary. For others, it might be, oh, finally, I can let go. What I hear you talking about is if you take the remedy of Neptune, then you can override the Saturnian, is that how you would say
Mhm.
it? Fear, right? So what would be some of those, what would be some of the qualities of that tincture that I would be actually, maybe I would journal about them, or maybe I would try to think about them and contemplate them, or try to embody them in my body so that I can really integrate them.
I mean, one could do a journaling exercise on when we feel grace has held us in a situation that felt scary or difficult, or a transition that was very uncomfortable or
Yeah.
threatening. So I think thinking back to the past and
Mm.
remembering ourselves so that we come back into knowing that life has sustained us thus
Yeah.
far, and that we've met crossroads and developmental cusps in different
Yeah.
ways. And usually the grace comes either from inside or from another person or an
Yeah.
agent, some active agency of life itself. I
Yeah.
mean, I have an example of just a of the grace coming in, which I can briefly share.
Yeah.
I was on a solo e-bike trip on the Outer Hebridean Islands, off the west coast of Scotland in 2022, and I was trying to reclaim my capacity to travel alone, which I hadn't. I did it in India and Nepal when I was 26, and I did it in England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland for a period of time when I was 20. But later in life, I had been traveling with a companion, and then that companionship kind of fell apart, and I wanted to still travel. So I was trying to show myself that I could still do it. It was much harder in 2022, but and the pandemic was somewhat going on. But the point of this little nugget of the story is I had not accounted on the e-bike for the fact that the battery would run out more
Mm.
quickly if I was
Wow.
against the
Oh,
wind.
wow.
So I had calculated how far I was going to be able to get each night, and I had plotted out what youth hostels I was going to stay at or other kinds of places where I'd booked. And this was only my second day of going, and I was completely against the wind the whole way. And I suddenly realized at 6 p.m. I was out of my own wind and the bike out of my own gas, and the bike was
Yeah.
out of, not yet, but I was nowhere near going to get to my destination. So I pulled into a like a fish and chips slash gas station, and there were people sitting over near the fish and chips, and I just walked over and asked some guy, I'm in a situation, I need to find a place to stay because I'm not going to make it to my destination. And the guy said, well, God has shined upon you today, lass, or whatever, because this guy over here, Peter, he's got everything you need. He's just waiting for his fish and chip food. But let me take you and introduce him to him. So he introduces me to Peter, and Peter has like a it's bigger than an Airbnb. It's a place where people can stay up to 21 people. It's like right next to where he lives. And there was a huge crowd of people coming in the next day. But this very night, the place was empty. And he happened to be there with a van, and he could throw my bike into the back of his van. And we drove after he got his food from the fish and chips order. We drove just 5 minutes to where he lived, and he took such good care of me. And there was a kitchen down the hall from the room I was in. I was alone in this big building. It was like the most deluxe accommodations I was to have on the whole trip. And he also later took me down to the beach in the evening because his children, he was picking up his daughter and his nephew, and we went on this trail. It was like a whole little adventure. That was completely the act of grace. It was,
Mm.
and then he told me about where I should go the next night, because I could go further than my original itinerary. He mentioned a youth hostel I hadn't even heard about, so it changed my whole, trajectory. That was one of the most special ones. It was right near an
Wow.
old nunnery with really great energy there, and a fabulous youth hostel warden. What so many things came out of that. So to me, that was this amazing example of how life takes care of us. And
Yeah.
all I could do was just put my hands in the in the place of trust, what else could I do? Saturn could not figure this one out.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what stands out to me is the faith that was there and the resourcefulness. It's like, okay, I have to do something here. The faith, when you were sharing the story about that the place was empty, I immediately went to a scared place. So I'm going to be a woman alone at night there. So it's interesting because these things just kind of show up, whatever is in
Yeah,
our psyche, right?
yeah.
And there's the allowing is there. The allowing was there. You went with it, the playfulness, the humor of this guy, the introduction, and you allowed grace to show up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I trusted in this person. I trusted in
Yes.
the heart exchange between us. There was nothing
Yes.
to doubt because
Yeah.
he was this
Yeah.
lovely bloke taking care of me, and the perfection of that he even had a van to get my bike to his place.
So I want to say, so do you feel that it was in the moment that you could trust? You wouldn't know in advance, but in the interaction, you trusted what your body was telling you, what your nervous system was telling you?
I think so. I mean, I think probably the US is one of the places one would have way more doubts about
Yes.
safety. I mean, I
Yeah.
have traveled alone before. I hitchhiked alone when I was only
Yeah.
20. So I do have, in addition to trust, there is that Aries energy, which is about courage and
Yeah.
fearlessness. And they go together, I think,
Yeah.
because you have to have an element of just the fire of the force of what you want to do
Yeah.
that helps,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That helps
Yes.
fuel the whole
Yeah.
thing. It's like I'm not going to let fears of what could go wrong or what could happen to me disable the Aries spark that's like, this is
Yes.
what I really want to do. So I knew I had already been to
Yeah.
Scotland twice. I already had known the vibe of the country. And
Yeah.
so I didn't have any doubts about
Yeah.
what could happen by just asking. I
Yeah.
don't know. Didn't even
Yeah.
occur to me to be worried about it.
So in the spur of the moment, I want to read the quality a message from another card, just as we kind of close, because what you said something, you said it so beautifully. Um, you just opened up to grace to show up, right? You allowed it to show to the magic of it and it being such a magical opportunity. So you allowed it, and then grace could come in, and then it just became this magical,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I didn't know in the moment that Grace was
Right.
coming. I was just,
No.
somebody help me. I
Right.
need
Yeah.
help. Right.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
on.
So it's just like it speaks to, so this is from the quality of grace.
Mm,
And again, it just brings this spiritual material play. You asked for something concrete that you needed,
mhm,
and maybe you were a bit worried, realizing, okay, what do I do now?
mm,
And then you just opened up and
mhm.
took it step by step in trust, and it felt right to you to trust. And then you allowed grace and more grace and more grace to show up. And so there's something about allowing, um, trusting, allowing, and then allowing the universe to play with you, allowing the universe to show up, because it's not just about us trusting, about us having grace kind of descend on us, right? It's like it's interacting with a web. And so the more we do it, the more we have the faith that you talk about in the Neptunian, right?
And the
Um,
more we have the faith, the more it's likely to come meet us.
exactly. And
Two-way
so
faith is essential.
exactly. Yes. I feel like that's really so then the trust can build and the trust builds and the trust build. So this is a message from the quality of grace. Walk on this earth aware of your loveliness. Sprinkle that loveliness around you as you move through your day. When you are conscious of my presence and appreciate my company, you amplify my existence in the world.
Mm,
So, grace is not something that just falls on us every now and then. It's something that we can actually nurture just like we can nurture the Neptunian qualities in order to bring them more into our daily life and moment to moment. And just like we can open up and imagine ourselves being in this held by a web of these golden threads and see how that opens us up for the rest of our day. And so it's been a beautiful episode. Thank you.
I thought I would add one thing since you
Please,
brought up
yes.
grace. From the Gene Keys perspective, which is another system that involves astrology that I know that you're
Right.
familiar with, and
Yes. That
many of
you are very much into.
I've been studying it alongside astrology for a few years now. I happen to know that in your Gene Keys chart, which is one can create based on birth date, just like
Yeah.
astrology, grace is the highest emanation of the root of your chart. And so it was really lovely to hear you reading this loveliness of grace and kind of picking up on my mention of grace and having it imbue our conversation.
Yeah.
I just was
Yeah.
touched by that beautiful card and
Yeah.
your emanation of grace.
Beautiful. Thank you. So just to practice to trust that grace is around the corner, waiting to grace us if we open up, if we allow, and if we trust and take one step and one more step, grace
Yeah.
is going to show up for us.
And really practice not letting fear thinking embody, like not getting confused that practical thinking has to be fear thinking. Like we want
Yes.
to be practical, but we want to walk practically with grace as well.
Right. In a
Trust.
mutual way. Beautiful. Well, thank you for
Thank you,
today.
Anna. It's been a pleasure as always.
Blessings to all.
Blessings.